There are few places on Earth where the balance of nature is still in the hands of Mother Nature without the need of man's interference. There are even fewer places where virtually all of the original pre-European species still exist. One such place is on the Great Kenyan Savannah called the Masai Mara. Giant herds of antelope roam across the grasslands, being shadowed by four great predators: the elusive leopard, the misunderstood hyena, the lightning-fast cheetah, and the lord of the bush, the lion. Jumbo, I'm Bill Ball, and I'm going to be your guide on this episode of Journeys in Africa. And this is Africa. The Africa experience was summed up by Ernest Hemingway when he said, "All I wanted to do was to get back to Africa. We had not left it yet, but when I would wake at night, I would lie, listening, homesick for it already." Join us each week as we explore the entire continent of Africa, from the plains of the Serengeti to the heights of Kilimanjaro and all points in between. We'll introduce you to the history, culture, and wildlife of one of the most exotic and extraordinary places on Earth. Journeys in Africa. The Masai Mara is located in East Africa in the southwestern corner of Kenya at the border of Tanzania. It is part of a much larger ecosystem that includes the Serengeti and Ngorongoro crater on the Tanzania side. The area of the Masai Mara is nearly 600 square miles, while the whole ecosystem covers over 12,000 square miles. That's nearly the size of Switzerland. There are two ways to access the Mara, as it is known. You could fly into one of the private airstrips, or as most people, you can drive. It is just a few hours from the gateway city of Nairobi and its international airport. There is no land connection currently between the Serengeti and the Masai Mara, making visiting both parks in the same trip quite inconvenient. Last year we picked up the migration in the Serengeti, so this year we decided to go to the Masai Mara. In the Masai Mara, they come here in about June and they leave in October. Whether you visit during the migration or not, you will not be disappointed. Year-round, 10 of the big 12 are possible to be seen: elephant, black rhino, buffalo, lion, leopard, hyena, zebra, giraffe, hippo, and cheetah. But when you add in the migration, numbers explode. Not only the wildebeest and zebra numbers, the two main migrants, but the predators as well. In fact, the Mara has one of the highest lion concentrations in the world, with over 500 lions prowling the grasslands in the bush country. The annual wildebeest migration moves in a southeast to northwest pattern, following the rains and the availability of grasses. Wildebeest are the dominant herbivore in the greater Masai Mara Serengeti ecosystem. Every ecosystem has its top plant eater. Central India has its chital or spotted deer. Yellowstone has the elk, and Alaska the moose. Each animal is well designed to exploit the resources of the area where it lives. Wildebeest are grazers, where incisors are designed to most efficiently eat the grasses of the savanna. So efficiently, that is, that 1.5 million plus of them have to keep moving or starve. The lines of wildebeest can extend for miles and contain thousands of animals. Zebra and gazelles often mix in, giving even greater numbers of animal on the move. There is no set distance covered in a day. Often the animals linger in an area for a week or more. It all depends on food and some primeval instinct. Wildebeest have no leader or dominant male to lead them. They just seem to move by some group mentality that is not yet fully understood. Following the herds closely are the predators, the chief of which is the lion. These are the second biggest cats in the world. The tiger is larger, weighing up to 500 pounds. They hunt in groups or prides of 2 cats or more. Some of the prides in the Mara reach 30 individuals. They hunt collectively for prey larger than themselves like zebra, buffalo, and of course wildebeest, especially during the migration. In captivity, lions have been known to live over 20 years, but in the wild, they are lucky if they make it to their 15th birthday. It is a difficult life being a top predator. Most, if not all, your prey can inflict a fatal injury, either from a jaw-breaking kick or a deep gouge from horns. Lions will also attack and kill each other over territory. Life at the top does not come without significant risks. During the non-migration months, food is scarce and starvation among the young and very old is not uncommon. But during the migration, there is a bounty. Lions hunt by ambush. It may be hard to believe that one large lion can hide in 2 or 3 foot tall grass without detection, let alone a whole pride of several cats. But that is exactly what happens. Watch carefully as lions seem to appear and disappear in the sea of blowing grasses on the Mara. This hard-to-capture footage demonstrates the ability of lions to literally vanish before your eyes. When they smell or see prey approaching, they wait for that right moment and bam! They strike. Here, for instance, out of nowhere is a male. Lions will often lie in wait in a semicircle pattern so that the unwary is trapped once they stumble into the lion's lair. The other preferred hunting method is to stalk closely to the prey and make a last-minute close dash, hoping to catch their next meal distracted or off guard. We approach another lion pride and notice that their behavior is a bit odd for the daytime. Lions will take prey in ambush during the day. It's like a gift. But stalking is most effective at dusk or dawn. But it is the peak of the migration, and you've got to get it when you can. The male begins to move in a stealth mode. He walks and pauses. He doesn't want to draw attention. The wildebeest are on the move. They are not quiet and don't take many precautions when migrating. They have numbers, and that can be protection enough. The male lion enters the bush to attempt the ambush. The vultures are already in position, having seen the lions and the approaching wildebeest. We lose sight of the male. There has to be females nearby, but we don't see them. For a moment, I have an eerie feeling. A pride has to be around us, and yet, only one lion was easy to see. We see only trees. The wildebeest seem confused, running in both directions, and then they're gone. No sign of the lions. Something must have happened. So it was time to drive in the direction where the lions and the wildebeest would intersect. Now is the time to divert your eyes if you are a bit squeamish. I'll tell you when to look again. We found a lioness on a freshly killed wildebeest. It is the law of nature, survival of the fittest, and without making a kill, the lion could not survive. But it is still hard to watch the aftermath. The male was not in sight, which means there was a second animal taken that we did not see, or he had eaten earlier today, since males always eat first, despite the fact that most of the hunting is done by the ladies. This lioness seems in no hurry, which would not be the case in leaner months, when competition for food forces even lions to eat as much as possible in as short a period of time as possible. Oh, okay, you can look now. There's only one animal that can possibly drive a lion off of a kill, and then eat it themselves, and that's a hyena. Don't get me wrong, other animals can and do drive lions off of prey or move them out of their area. I've personally witnessed both buffalo and elephants do it, but they do it for personal safety. Only hyenas will attempt it for food. It takes a lot of hyenas to drive off even one lion, let alone a pride. But hyenas have large family groups or clans that can drive predators off their kills. Leopards and cheetahs are no match, especially when the cats are dining alone. The Masai Mara researchers are studying the territory and feeding habits of its hyenas and are radio collaring some individuals. The collars do not seem to interfere with the animal's life and automatically fall off after a predetermined time period. Hyenas are special animals. Despite their reputation as a cowardly scavenger, they are now known as efficient and prolific hunters. In fact, the largest number of wildebeest young are taken by hyenas, not lions or leopards. They weigh up to 180 pounds and have the strongest jaws of any predators, giving them the ability to chew through bones for the marrow inside. They tend to live longer than lions, sometimes making it to the age of 20. Recent studies have found that half of the hyena's diet is by their own kills. That is not far off from some lion groups that scavenge leopard and cheetah kills. Hyenas are built for endurance, with their strangely shaped bodies where they literally slope downward. When making a kill, they scatter a herd and select an individual that they chase until it's exhausted. Hyena can run for miles, wearing prey down like no other predator. Predators from lions and hyenas are not the only worry for wildebeest. The river crossings pose a great threat for a number of reasons. First, wildebeest do drown. In the mad rush to cross a river, some don't make it. Others are caught by crocodiles, another mega predator, while some are hurt in the scramble down or up the bank and break a leg, a fatal injury. Though the wildebeest are not the smartest hoofed animals, they do recognize the danger of river crossings and play out an age-old ritual before making the commitment. The wildebeest will gather at the river's edge in ever-increasing numbers. They hesitate, move forward, then retreat back, and then freeze. To see a river crossing is one of the highlights of the Mara experience, and many safari goers dedicate the better part of a day to the off chance that it happens. I wanted to find out the odds of a crossing happening, so I asked our local guide, Dowdy, a few questions about his many years of living and guiding in the Mara. How often do they cross across the river? Is it daily or just once in a while?
You find it for the wild beasts, let's say now when they're coming. You know, they can, the first times, when they came from Serengeti, come down here to Mara. So the first day, the first times, let's say the first week, they usually be relaxing first of all, and then later they can just like crossing almost each and every day. But there's no specific time.
Like so many others, we wait for the wildebeest to gather in large enough numbers that they often push those in front down the bank. The initial first few over the bank trigger the others to follow, and a crossing is made. The numbers are growing, but the movement is not consistently forward. We had heard reports that there had been a crossing the day before, so our hopes were high. June through August is the peak season for wildebeest to enter the Mara and cross the Mara River, which bisects the park. The banks can have an 18-foot vertical drop, but that does not deter the wildebeest. No one knows how many are lost crossing rivers, but the numbers can reach thousands. That's still a fraction of the 1.5 million that migrate. The more I watch the antelope, wildebeest are members of the antelope family, the more I'm sure that there will be no crossing today at the Mara River. The Mara River is not the only river in the park the wildebeest must cross on their epic journey, though it is the most spectacular with its 100-foot wide swim. Smaller river and tributaries can also give a sensation of the crossing, though with reduced risk to the animals. I know of one of those crossings, so we head in that direction. We seem to arrive just in time as a large wildebeest herd gather on the bank with a handful of zebra accompanying them. Again, they could turn back at any time and the photo opportunity would be lost. We did not have to wait long, though, for the wildebeest to answer our question. Suddenly, without warning, the mass of four-legged wanderers of the savannah came running down the bank and into the shallow river. It was chaos with hoofs. Some would climb on the backs of others if they weren't moving fast enough. Others would push with their heads and inevitably their horns. Several stumble on the rocks, but none seemed to fall. It was an incredible sight, even though this small river was too shallow to swim in. The animals near the stampede made for great photos. I wasn't sure what caused the sudden move into the river, but as the animals cleared, I had a possible explanation. Not far behind the mass of wildebeest was a leopard. I wasn't sure that the leopard was spotted, no pun intended, by the wildebeest, causing the sudden lurch into the ravine, or if he had followed them, hoping for one to break a leg or worse, making for easy pickings. The wildebeest and zebra all made it across without major injury, something that seemed almost too good to be true. The animals, especially the zebra, were quite vocal about making it across the potential death trap. As quickly as the herd had gathered and crossed, they had left the area in search of greener pastures. The excitement of the crossing and the brief encounter with the leopard was a great find, but one thing I have learned from safaris is one good sighting often leads to another. Animals tend to congregate, and so we decided to head off into the direction of the wildebeest. We were rewarded fairly quickly with another set of lions in the grass. Now, one of my safari rules actually helped us spot these very elusive and well-camouflaged lions. Look for other vehicles to alert you to a good sighting. That works everywhere in the world. Yellowstone, Kruger, Kaziringa in India, Pandatal in Brazil, the Canadian Rockies, you name it. Let others help. More eyes, more sightings. Other people seeing an animal, though, doesn't beat the thrill of being the first to spot a rarity. Being first could also give you the ideal placement for watching the behavior unfold. Being so close to these lions, and even knowing that they were there, having them literally disappear in the grass, was a bit eerie. It is no wonder the park has a strict no leaving the vehicle rule. You could easily walk right up to a lion without knowing it, since they are so well camouflaged. It is easy to get totally caught up in the wildebeest and their remarkable migration, and the lions that hunt them, and forget the abundance of other wildlife in the Mara. One of the biggest and toughest of these animals is another member of the Big 12. If you aren't familiar with the Big 12, they are the animals that all safari goers want to see. They include the old Big Five from the hunting days: the lion, leopard, buffalo, elephant, and rhino. The Big 12 is for camera hunters, and they also include the other rhino species, black and white or hook-lipped and square-lipped depending on your preference, giraffe, zebra, hippo, hyena, cheetah, and wild dog. These are the mega herbivores and predators of the African plain. Now back to our next sighting, the big and tough buffalo. Buffalo were listed on the original Big Five for hunters because they are the most unpredictable of the group. They charge anything that's a threat. If a hunter would wound a buffalo, instead of fleeing like other members of the Big Five, they would often double back and attack the hunter. Because of the abundance of grass in the Mara, the herds here are larger than most other parks. Because of their size, over a ton, and the size of the herds, they are pretty safe from predators, including the lion. Given the volume of easier game here, lions will often avoid the buffalo. The only way for lions to capture buffalo is to drive the herd into a stampede and hope one is tripped or stumbles, making for an easy kill. The buffalo move as a unit, making it hard to single out individuals. In the classification of animals, one might be tempted to put buffalo in the same category as antelope. They do have an antelope-like body, though it's much more bulky. They have horns and are herbivores or plant eaters. They even look a bit like the wildebeest, which is most certainly an antelope. But they are not an antelope at all. In fact, they are related to cattle. They do have a distant relative in Asia, the water buffalo. The Asian cousin is not as bulked up, has straighter pointed horns, and has more of a placid disposition. The water buffalo have been domesticated for over 5,000 years, while the African or Cape buffalo have remained wild. One of the most distinguishing features of the African buffalo is its horns. The horns in adult animals have developed fused bases, making them especially thick, a sort of bone shield for the skull that is so strong that even a rifle bullet cannot penetrate it. These are gregarious animals that protect each other when attacked, watch out for the young who are most vulnerable, and work together in their search of water, something necessary for survival. In fact, African buffalo are one of the most common and widespread of the big game animals. They are found across East and Southern Africa, with related subspecies extending the range across central and western parts of the continent. Only places they are not found are the desert regions due to their need for water. There are an estimated to be nearly 1 million wild buffalo in Africa, predominantly found in protected reserves. The biggest threat to buffalo today is habitat loss, as with most wildlife, but also uniquely from disease. In the 1890s, vast herds were decimated in southern Africa by rinderpest, a disease now declared eradicated by the World Health Organization in 2011. It is only the second such disease that was eradicated, the other being smallpox. The current threat is bovine tuberculosis, which had a recent outbreak at Kruger National Park in South Africa. Despite all of this, buffalo are classified as least threatened, meaning they are not likely to be endangered anytime soon. It is a thrill to see the vast herds in the Mara, and a bit comforting to know that they will likely remain for generations to come. On the Serengeti side, last year, we followed the massive herds of wildebeest and zebra across the open savanna. They were at their peak movement and were marching in lines that extended several miles. The sheer numbers were amazing. Through the Serengeti, the wildebeest march in this almost single-file formation and then suddenly stop for days and eat, basically eating themselves out of house and home, forcing them to move on. Their goal is the Masai Mara, where the grass is literally greener on the other side of the river. Interestingly, the Serengeti is much larger than the Masai Mara, comprising over 33% of the greater ecosystem, while the Mara makes up less than 10%. Another big herbivore that is found in particularly good numbers in the Mara is the world's largest antelope, the eland. Eland are sexually dimorphic, which is a fancy way of saying that males and females look different. As in the case of many, though not all antelope, the males are bigger than the females. Males can exceed 2,000 pounds, while females usually hover around half that weight. Something that sets eland apart from other antelope and most other horned animals is that the female's horns are actually longer than the males, though the males do tend to be thicker. Eland are herd antelope, with some of the herds in the Masai Mara reaching into the hundreds. It is a good thing they travel in large herds and are the biggest antelope, which helps protect them, since they are also the slowest of the antelope. Their top speed is 25 miles per hour, or slightly faster than humans. Our sprinting record holders run a paltry 23 miles per hour compared to the king of sprinting, the cheetah, which can clock in at 55 miles an hour. Like a human sprinter, the eland will quickly tire at its top speed. Eland are more like marathon runners, able to run at 14 miles per hour, about half of their top speed indefinitely, which coincidentally is about the same speed as a record holder for the marathon. Eland are not considered endangered, though their numbers have been dropping. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN, has listed them as least concerned for extinction. The IUCN is the world's oldest and largest global environmental network, created out of the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, the same group that created the World Heritage List, which includes the Masai Mara. The Union for Conservation has over 1,000 governmental and non-governmental organizations as members and works with over 11,000 volunteer scientists in over 160 countries to monitor wildlife and the environment. They are headquartered near Geneva, Switzerland. There are currently about 136,000 eland in the wild, with about half of its population in protected areas and 30% on private property. The growing number on private lands is due to its value as a game animal and for a photo safari checklist animal. Eland are shy in the wild and are hard to photograph, making them an antelope that all safari goers are keen on capturing on film. The Masai Mara is a game-rich area that has wildlife to suit all tastes. There is big game representing many of the Big 12, small game, and abundant bird life that will challenge even the most ardent birders. The size of the park at first seems manageable, but you soon realize that it is one of the larger parks with rough dirt tracks and wildlife around every corner that one safari visit is never enough. We drew that conclusion early in our visit, and we knew we had to extend our stay. We had seen some incredible wildlife and should, by all accounts, be satisfied. But we wanted more. We got that ever so short glimpse of the leopard after the wildebeest crossing, and that compelled us to extend our stay to try to tell the leopard story, just as we have told the lion and the wildebeest story in this show. We knew that getting a good leopard sighting is tough, and we could only extend for another day and a half, but we had to try. I'm Bill Ball, and I'll see you on the next episode of Journeys in Africa. There is a place where flamingos gather by the thousands. The rare rhino is actually commonly seen, and yet people live only feet from the park's edge. This wonderland of wildlife is driving distance from the largest city in East Africa and one of the largest in the world. The centerpiece of this lesser-known national park is a lake that plays host to hundreds of species of birds and is the basis of one of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth. This land of plenty is Nakuru National Park, wonderland of Africa. Jumbo, I'm Bill Ball, and I'm going to be your guide on this episode of Journeys in Africa. And this is Africa. The Africa experience was summed up by Ernest Hemingway when he said, "All I wanted to do was to get back to Africa. We had not left it yet, but when I would wake at night, I would lie, listening, homesick for it already." Join us each week as we explore the entire continent of Africa, from the plains of the Serengeti to the heights of Kilimanjaro and all points in between. We'll introduce you to the history, culture, and wildlife of one of the most exotic and extraordinary places on Earth. Journeys in Africa. There are three things that are really special about Nakuru National Park. First, of course, it's the flamingos. Over 1 million of them can be seen here, and that's why most people come to visit the park. But there are two other reasons that make this park very special. First, it's one of the few places in East Africa where you can see rhinos. And secondly, it's right up to the village. Literally, you can see buffalo, zebra, rhinos walking in front of village buildings. It's that close to the village. Almost immediately upon entering the park, we spot one of those unusuals, rhinos. In the whole first season of filming, we did not get a single rhino on camera. And here, we start with two. There are two species of rhinos found in Africa, the white and the black. Those names are not actually good or accurate descriptions. In fact, the white name may come from the Dutch word for wide because of its broad mouth or because of its wide distribution. Either way, it is not due to its color, which is gray and quite similar to the black rhino. The more proper name for the white rhino would be a square-lipped rhino, since it has a broad, square look to its face. That's because the white rhino is a grazer, eating grasses, and the wide mouth gives it more grasses for the bite. Now that's the opposite of the black rhino, which has a narrow lip and can be called the hooked lip rhino. The name rhinoceros comes from the Latin rhino, meaning nose, and keros, a horn. Though Nakuru National Park has both black and white rhinos, we saw only the white, which is not unusual. White rhinos are grazers and so are found in open, more visible grasslands, while the browsing black rhinos like scrub areas, so are not as easily seen, and on top of that, they tend to be a bit more skittish. The white rhino is also the most common of all rhino species, with over 17,000 individuals worldwide. These are the second largest land animals in Africa and the third largest in the world, only after the African and Asian elephants. Weighing upwards to 5,000 pounds and built in a stocky, muscular way, these hoofed tanks are a formidable foe to any animal in the bush. Once full grown, they are really no natural enemies. The one enemy these dual-horned beasts have is a man with a gun. Hunted for their horns, rhinos all over the world have become critically endangered. Even in protected preserves, poaching can still occur. It is because the horns are so valuable on the black market that people risk going to jail because of the monetary rewards. The biggest use of the horn is as a male enhancement drug. It is the rhino's toughness and strength that has led to this fallacy. Ironically, the rhino horn is not really a proper horn like in antelope. It is rather made of keratin, the same material as fingernails. To protect Nakuru's 70 white rhinos, Kenya has assigned armed guards that follow the animals to prevent poaching. But we do have more to see, and it is that other special animal of this park that we need to search out. That other animal is, of course, the flamingo. At certain times of year, flamingos gather in incredible numbers, literally turning Lake Nakuru pink. That is a seasonal occurrence that happens in summer as the water levels recede and the lake is shallow enough for the flamingos to walk in it. We have come to Nakuru at the right time of year, but nature can be fickle and quite unpredictable. And this is one of those times. Sometimes the surprises nature throws at you can be great. On the other hand, nature can take away some of our expectations, and this is one of them. There was no large gathering of flamingos, since this year there was more rain than normal, so the water levels of the lake were too high for the flamingos. Only the shallow edges can accommodate the birds, and that limits their number. It will be a few more weeks before Lake Nakuru will return to the pink paradise that birders come to see. That does not mean birders are totally shut out. Lake Nakuru actually has more species diversity when the flamingos are not dominating the scene. One of those birds worth seeing is the yellow-billed stork. The 3-foot-tall yellow-billed stork is one of 19 species of storks worldwide. The name stork has a Germanic origin, which means upright, referring to its often stiff stance. Storks are found on all continents except Antarctica, though the vast majority are found in tropical Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. The yellowbill is one of 6 African species. African storks are some of the most diverse groups of birds with diets and habits that run the gamut of the yellow-billed's fish, frog, and snake diet to the less glamorous marabou stork's scavenging. And, unlike the herons, storks are mute, with bill clamping as the only sound they can make. Yellow-billed storks are clever birds and have learned that many of their favorite foods are on the bottom of the lake. So they use their feet to stir up the bottom to scare up fish, crayfish, and frogs so that they are easy targets. Even those that have no interest in birds have to admit they are fascinating to watch. Non-birders, it's now safe to listen again. The diversity of aquatic birds like the uncommon dimorphic heron and the terrestrial birds like the incredible superb starlings, if only we had starlings so lovely, make Nakuru National Park one of the best birder locales in East Africa. Nakuru National Park is a magnificent park even beyond the rhinos and flamingos. It is loaded with wildlife and is one of the most scenic and accessible parks in Kenya, if not all of East Africa. The park was created in 1961 to primarily preserve the lake and the flamingos, which birding legend Roger Torrey Peterson called the greatest birding spectacle in the world. The first incarnation of the park was even smaller than the present 73 square miles, making it one of the smaller national parks in Africa. Nakuru means dusty place in the Masai language, and when the wind blows in the dry season, the name becomes obvious. At less than 100 miles northwest of Nairobi, it is one of the most accessible parks, though by no means is it overcrowded. Most of the safari traffic goes south to the Masai Mara and Amboseli. Even with its small size, this park boasts 56 mammal species, 9 of the Big 12, and 450 species of birds. Even botany buffs will find solace here with over 550 species of plants. As I mentioned at the outset of the show, one of the unique features of this park is its proximity to nearby settlements. The initial size of the park back in 1961 was just the lake and the mountains at its edge. The Savannah area, where much of the wildlife resides, was added later, bringing it right up to the surrounding villages. To keep poachers out and wildlife in, a fence was erected around the park. This 116-mile-long fence is one of the few public fences in all of East Africa, though fencing wildlife reserves is common in South Africa. It is still a strange feeling to see rhinos and buffalo grazing within petting range of local villagers. This is one of those incredible parks that you could spend days exploring, looking for many of the interesting, rare, and unique species of plants and animals found here. One of the more interesting plant species that we encountered at Nakuru was the yellow fever tree. Yeah, yellow fever tree. In the early days of African exploration, many of those pioneers linked yellow fever to these trees. The yellowish-green color may have contributed to that perception, but people living near these trees had high incidence of yellow fever. The cause and effect seemed intertwined. But this was pre-science, and now we know a mosquito spreads yellow fever. So how does the tree seem so tied to the disease? Simple. The trees thrive in a moist environment, the same area where mosquitoes breed. The drive through the yellow fever tree forest began to set the stage for this trip, the trip of death. Local Maasai guides looking over our itinerary had mentioned it, but I was sure I had misunderstood. Our next adventure would cement their suspicions and my fears. But before our next adventure would start, we had to make it out of the park, and that can be harder than you would think. Not because we got lost or there's a trick to exiting Nakuru, but because the wildlife can dictate what goes on within the park boundaries. Well, we've just been passed by a troop of baboons, probably 100, maybe even 120 of them. They were led by some dominant males. Backup group was dominant males on the sides also. But right down the middle, you had all the females and young. Females were carrying a lot of the young on their backs, but some of the young run on their own too. But these aren't your gentle, everyday monkeys that you might think of. Their canines are 1.5 inches or longer. They've been known to attack leopards who might be going after one of their troops. So you don't really mess with these guys. They work as a unit, and they're going to protect each other as a unit. Baboons are fascinating animals to watch. They are some of the largest monkeys in the world. Yes, they are monkeys, not apes. The difference is monkeys have tails. Though baboons are short, they do have a tail. Also, apes' arms are longer than their legs, while monkeys' arms are the same or shorter than their legs. And of course, apes have larger brains, though that is not something that you can see easily. Baboons in Nakuru travel in large groups of 50 or more individuals. Though baboons do not pair bond for life, males and females often form friendships that benefit both in breeding, care of young, and protection. To solidify that relationship, they often groom one another. This large group of baboons is made up of a few males, several females, and their young. As males reach sexual maturity, they leave and find another troop of baboons, thus avoiding inbreeding. Males have to fight for dominance, while females inherit their status from their mothers. We could stay all day to watch the baboons, but we have another exciting area to visit. First, we need to head to our nearby lodge. I was excited to see and stay at the Malawi Saba camp because it was much more than a place to rest your head. This lodge is not your typical for-profit establishment that you find throughout the world. This lodge has a purpose, and after handing my suitcase off to the porter, I went straight to the manager to find out the philanthropic origins of this resort. Okay, Charles, why don't you tell me a little bit about the foundation? I mean, this is an incredible concept, the lodge here being tied to that.
Actually, the foundation is called Ujima Foundation. Ujima means achieved with the help of others. Ujima basically targets orphaned youngsters between the age of 18 years and 24 years. These are people whose parents are, these are youth whose parents are passed on, and also they have familial responsibilities. So we train them on employability, and then we mediate them towards employment. So once they go through our training centers, which one is in Nakuru, and the other one is in Kisumu City. So we train them on employability, and then we link them with the job market. So the concept of Ujima Foundation, we want to be not only sustainable, but also we want to be donor independent. So to run the foundation, the money that we generate from the lodge is linked directly to the foundation. So the lodges not only support the training center, but also acts as a skill center for the trainees. So once they do the theoretical know-how and knowledge in the training center, then they also come here to the lodges, and then they get the skills that they need to have for them to get jobs.
How many young people are you serving right now?
In Kisumu, we have 180 in a year. In Nakuru here, we have 60 trainees in a year. So in total, we have 180 in Kisumu, and here 60. That's 240 trainees in a year.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about the lodge and its wonderful location?
The Saba camp is actually located at the very edge of the Menengai crater. Menengai crater is the second largest caldera in the world with an awesome view, as you can see. It is really beautiful. It's sitting at the very edge. We have 10 bandas in total, so those are 10 accommodation units. And we can, at any given time, we can accommodate up to 24 people. And it's only 25 kilometers from the Lake Nakuru National Park. It's really, really beautiful. It has an amazing view. And one thing that I like about my Lisaba camp is that it's a small lodge, which means that we have all the time to spoil our guests beyond belief, not only because we like it, but because we have all the time in the world to do that. Yes.
Upon completion of our interview, Charles has assigned his top guide, Lucy, to take me on a short hike starting by the lodge. I love to hike, and the view down into the crater is breathtaking. What could be better? Well, I was soon to find out. Maybe just about anything. Okay, Lucy, how did this caldera get its name, and what is its name?
The name of the caldera is called Menengai Crater. It was formed out of two cultures in Kenya. We have the Masais and the Kikuyu. They call it because when the first people came in, they really died out of the poisonous snakes around here. So they call it a place of death.
What? A place of death?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because they really died when they came to bring in their pastures.
Okay, how big is this place of death?
The crater itself is 90 kilometers, that's the circumference all around, and then the diameter is 12 kilometers. And then we have the fault line, which runs from one side to the other side, which is 24 kilometers.
Okay, and those snakes, the place of death snakes, they're all gone, right?
No, they're not gone. They are still there, the black mambas, the green mambas, the cobras, and the puff adders.
All right, well, I think I'm going to have our producer go first because she's kind of expendable.
Not really.
Okay, so now I know that I'm walking into a crater that Masai, men that walk unafraid among lions, are too afraid to go into. I had already faced yellow fever, now poisonous snakes. Not just one kind, but a hit parade of poisonous snakes. Being a responsible and not too easy to fool person, I figured that it was mostly legend and superstition. I thought that until we came upon a cobra shed skin. And, being a wildlife biologist, I knew snakes shed their skin only when they outgrow the last. This cobra is getting bigger. The snake skin did not deter us though. I mean, what's a deadly cobra between friends, especially if the camera-shy producer will handle all deadly snake confrontations. The days of fear in the canyon are long gone and locals venture down here occasionally, though not without a good reason according to our guide Lucy. Hiking the canyon is a workout, but the exercise is only part of the reason to head into the Crater of Death. The other is the lovely scenery left from its explosive days as a volcano. As we began to head back up the crater, made it out of the Crater of Death. Oh! Just kidding.
The devil wasn't there.
Lucy, you tried to kill us out there. It was horrible. I am ready to relax because I know the next day is another one where we can face certain doom. The next morning takes us to a nearby private park area in the lake region of Kenya on the shores of Lake Naivasha. We will stay at the cattle ranch Sanctuary Farm because it is adjacent to our next national park. It has its own large game and we can ride horseback in the midst of wildlife. Jody, the camera-shy producer, has never ridden a horse, so that is our first order of business. But first, we had to find the stables. We ran into chickens before the horses, the stable hand kids, and then more chickens. We asked directions, had to cut across country, through a fence. You're gonna go kind of like this, and then right there is the horses. To reach the stables, which turned out to be quite close to our starting point had we gone in the right direction. Once we made it, it was all business to get ready for Jody's first ride. The horses were selected to fit our size and riding experience. Most professional stables have horses that are safe and easy to ride, even for beginners. To show Jody there is nothing to fear, I mount first and she follows suit without hesitation. She has never ridden a horse, but in India she rode plenty of elephants and camels, so I was sure that she would love this much more domesticated beast of burden. All started well enough, and it felt nice riding a horse through the ranch grounds that had become a wildlife refuge. And if you just look at the footage that Dave, our cameraman, got, you would never think different. We rode at a slow pace, watching antelope and zebra as we rode by. This was a special experience that I was glad to have up to that point, and so was Jody. What happened next was not what she planned. Dave had gone off with the camera, so no record exists. But Jody and I rode along the edge of the lake thinking it was shallow. Not so much. Our horses fell into a deep ravine and had to swim. I thought it was exciting. Jody decided she wanted to stick to elephants. So it was back on foot to see some of the wildlife that took over the ranch. And it was a takeover, since their grazing has forced the owner to cut back on cattle. Of course, wildlife buffs like ourselves have helped to replace the farming income. I walked cautiously among several antelope species and the zebra. Wildebeest are good-sized antelope and move as a unit, so trampling was my concern with them. Waterbuck have intimidating horns, so males are given a wide berth. But it was actually the zebra that I watched the closest. They can kick with a fatal force using their hoofs to stop lion attacks. I did not need to test those waters, especially with the watery experience I'd already had with the zebra's domestic cousin. It was the biggest of the hoofed animals on the property that intrigued me the most, the giraffe. I knew they also had a lethal kick, but I wanted to get close enough to get some great photos. Having studied wild giraffes for years, I knew when they appeared alarmed, so I moved close, but not too close. A cautionary note here: never approach any animal so close they get alarmed, and never approach a predator. Even I give the meat eaters a wide berth. I had been referring to Sanctuary Farm as a ranch, and indeed it is, but that doesn't mean you sleep in bunks. The rooms are quite nice, which probably suited Jody well after her harrowing equine experience. Again, I'd just like to emphasize that going into the bush in Africa doesn't mean that you have to give up on comfort. There is now only one more death-defying adventure left for us in the lake region of Kenya. So what awaited us next? The Gates of Hell, of course. That is, the Gates of Hell National Park near the ranch. Hell's Gate National Park was created in 1984 to protect the geologic and scenic wonders of the area. The name Hell's Gate comes from a series of geothermic springs found in the gorge that we would explore on foot. The gorge is quite scenic as you climb up and down a series of rock formations. Well, you can see with the waterfalls comes down here, over the eons, it has slowly eroded the sandstone layer by layer and caused this really neat curve in the stone. That's all been caused by the water flow over, hundreds, maybe thousands of years.
The deeper you go into the canyon, the prettier it becomes. There are small waterfalls and the namesake geothermal springs that must have spooked the early natives who named this area.
But it is, for me, the power of water and the impressive gorge left in its wake that makes this hike worth it. I thoroughly enjoyed the climb. It was more of a climb than a walk through the gorge. Each corner turned into another postcard quality photo. The rest of the park outside the gorge is noted for its geothermal plants. Though this is not a normal national park use, it is the reason the land was set aside in the first place. There are a few wildlife species found here, like zebra and warthogs, but no predators, so bicycles are allowed on the roadways, making this a great place to add biking in Africa to your bucket list. This park is one of the lost treasures in Kenya. It is one of the most scenic parks not only in Africa, but the whole world. Natural wonders in Africa are not only restricted to wildlife viewing. Well, I always say that when you go on safari, you don't always get what you expect, and sometimes you get what you don't. This is one of those cases. We went to the lake region of Kenya looking for huge flocks of flamingos. Well, we saw some, but not the huge numbers. But what we did see were huge herds of buffalo, gazelles, and zebra, and of course, those close encounters with the rhino. I'm Bill Ball, and I'll see you on the next episode of Journeys in Africa.